In the stifling darkness of a long-forgotten dungeon, Seline finds herself imprisoned, not just by the cold, damp stone walls, but by a fate that seems to have conspired to erase every vestige of her former glory. Once the resplendent Luna of the Northern Territories, she now languishes in a cell where every breath is laced with the bitter tang of decay and despair. The air, thick with the stench of mold and human misery, clings to her like a curse, suffocating any remnant of hope. For 3 agonizing days, she has been confined in this dismal oubliette, where the ceaseless drip of water and the relentless seep of moisture have transformed the very stone into silent witnesses of her suffering. The room itself is a canvas of desolation. Walls that seem to weep with perpetual moisture, and a pervasive chill that burrows deep into her bones. Once, the cream silk of her baby's shower dress had been a symbol of promise and delicate beauty, a tangible representation of a life filled with potential and honor. Now, that same fabric, marred by grime and sweat, hangs heavy around her frail form, a cruel reminder of the splendor that has long since been stripped away. Its once pristine fibers are now rotted, drowned in the perpetual damp that mirrors the decay of her spirit. Every corner of her cell is imbued with neglect. Even the smallest creatures, a rat or a roach scuttling through the shadows, seem to mock her plight, their inconsequential lives echoing the neglect and abandonment that Seline feels with every passing moment. In this claustrophobic prison, the sounds of crude laughter and the occasional sorrowful sob resonate through the darkness, blending into a cacophony of despair that drowns out any semblance of dignity. Once revered and admired, Seline now finds herself reduced to a figure of pity and derision. There is no grace left in her. She is but a fallen emblem of what once was, a stark contrast to the noble Luna she used to be. Even those who once called her Your Majesty now address her with a tone of bitter amusement, as if her former radiance were nothing more than a distant memory. Some recognize her past glory, while others see only the tattered remnants of a life ruined by betrayal. In the eyes of the world outside her cell, she is a fallen star, a symbol of disgrace that has become an irresistible target for ridicule and scorn. But perhaps the most searing torment comes from within, the knowledge that she's been betrayed by those she once trusted. For years, Seline had lived a life of perfect obedience and unyielding loyalty to her pack, placing the welfare of the many above her own needs. Every sacrifice, every act of self-denial was driven by a commitment to a higher cause, a devotion to duty that had defined her existence. And yet, now that same dedication has left her utterly defenseless, a pawn sacrificed in a grand scheme that she never saw coming. The evidence against her has been meticulously planted, a poison vial, carefully forged journal entries that paint her as a murderer. It is as if someone has taken every detail of her life, every habit and every nuance, and twisted it into a damning narrative of guilt. The very tools of her existence, the records of her life, have become the instruments of her undoing. It is not just her freedom that is at stake. It is her very life, her identity, and the honor she once commanded. As the weight of her unjust fate settles in, silent tears carve deep, hot trails down her grimy cheeks. In the solitude of this oppressive darkness, a torrent of regret surges forth, a relentless questioning of every decision, every moment where trust was given freely, only to be repaid with treachery. Seline's mind becomes a battlefield of memories and remorse. She mourns not only the loss of her stature and dignity, but also the cost of her sacrifices, the silent, agonizing grief over opportunities missed, and a future that has been forever altered. The haunting absence of a love that was meant to be her anchor now stings like a fresh wound. Every thought of the man she once held dear, the one whose promise of unwavering support now feels like a distant, painful echo, adds another layer of sorrow to her already burdened heart. The cold, unyielding reality of her present situation sharpens the sense of betrayal. The ideals she had clung to so fiercely now crumble beneath the weight of relentless despair. Even as her spirit reels from this relentless onslaught of anguish, there remains an ember of defiance buried deep within her. It is a flicker, a desperate, stubborn spark that refuses to be extinguished despite the overwhelming darkness that surrounds her. That spark is fueled by the faint hope that somewhere the truth can be revealed, and justice might yet prevail. It is the hope that one day the world will see her not as a broken woman, condemned to fade away in shame, but as the valiant Luna she once was, a beacon of strength and resilience amid the crushing tides of betrayal. In this moment of isolation, as Seline braces herself for the torment that lies ahead, her heart and mind engage in a silent battle. It is a struggle to hold on to the remnants of her identity, to the memory of a time when she was admired and cherished. And though the darkness may seem impenetrable, and the path ahead fraught with despair, she clings to that last, fragile thread of hope. In the stillness of her captivity, that hope whispers of redemption, a promise that, even in the depths of humiliation and despair, the seeds of a future marked by justice and reclaimed honor may yet be sown. Inner Turmoil and the Weight of Duty Main Content Summary. In this segment, we delve deeper into Seline's tortured inner world as she grapples with the crushing burden of duty versus the raw pain of betrayal. Through intimate internal dialogues and vivid memories of past sacrifices, her inner conflict unfolds, revealing a heart torn between the unwavering loyalty once demanded by her role as Luna and the agonizing loss of personal dreams and love. Trapped in the unyielding darkness of her cell, Seline's mind becomes a vast landscape of conflicting emotions. The oppressive silence that surrounds her is intermittently broken by the echo of her own heartbeat, a steady reminder of a life that once pulsed with purpose and pride. In the solitude of this forsaken place, her thoughts swirl like storm clouds, each memory and regret coalescing into a torrent of inner turmoil. She recalls a time when obedience was her guiding star, a time when every sacrifice she made was not only expected, but celebrated. Seline had once embodied the very essence of duty, a perfect Luna whose every action was measured and refined for the greater good of the pack. Those were the days when her every decision was fueled by an unwavering commitment to her people, a commitment that demanded she put aside her own desires for the promise of unity and strength. Yet now that same dedication feels like a bitter chain, anchoring her to a past that no longer offers solace. In the quiet recesses of her mind, Seline hears the persistent whisper of her own conscience, questioning the very nature of her sacrifices. Was it all for nothing? She wonders, her thoughts a blend of anguish and disbelief. The memories of endless nights spent patrolling the borders, negotiating peace among warring factions, and silently enduring the burdens of leadership flood her senses. Each memory, once a testament to her valor, now twists into a reminder of a cruel fate, a fate where loyalty was repaid with betrayal. Her thoughts drift to the cherished moments of intimacy, now tainted by regret. The tender smile of a pack member who once believed in her strength, the reassuring touch of a companion who shared in her burdens. Each recollection is now pierced by the painful truth of what has been lost. The echo of laughter and whispered promises from a time when her sacrifices seemed noble now mingles with the stark reality of her solitude. In those fleeting instants, she can almost hear the distant voices of her past, urging her to remember who she once was. Yet the present leaves her feeling alienated from that once familiar self. Amidst this inner dialogue, a raw and unfiltered grief takes hold. The absence of the life she had dared to hope for, her unborn child, a symbol of love and the future, slices through her like a jagged shard of glass. How could I have allowed this to happen? She chides herself in a voice that trembles with sorrow. The lost promise of a new beginning, of dreams yet to be fulfilled, casts a long shadow over her thoughts. In that moment, every sacrifice, every act of selflessness seems to culminate in this single, devastating loss. The weight of her unspoken guilt mingles with the pervasive sense of betrayal, rendering her emotions almost unbearable. And yet, even as despair threatens to consume her, Seline's inner voice remains defiant. There are moments when she clings to the remnants of her strength, a spark of resilience that refuses to be extinguished. In the silent dialogue that unfolds within her, she debates fiercely with the echoes of her former self. "I was born to serve," her inner voice insists, recalling the countless nights spent guiding her pack through peril and strife. "I gave everything, even when it meant sacrificing my own happiness." But then, a more tender, wounded part of her responds, "At what cost? How do I reconcile a life of duty with the pain of being so utterly betrayed?" The clash of these thoughts creates a symphony of internal conflict, a battle between the ideals she once held dear and the harsh reality of her present suffering. In this crucible of emotion, Seline's mind becomes both her sanctuary and her prison. Every memory is a double-edged sword, a reminder of past triumphs and present failures. The ideals of perfect obedience and unwavering loyalty, once sources of pride, now torment her with their unattainable promises. The inner dialogue grows, louder, echoing in the darkness with desperate intensity. "I must remember who I am," she tells herself, fighting against the overwhelming despair. "I am not merely the sum of my sacrifices, but a soul with dreams and desires that deserve to live." Yet, even as she struggles to assert this truth, the relentless tide of regret and sorrow threatens to drown her spirit. In those rare moments of clarity, Seline's thoughts turn to the possibility of redemption, a hope that, somewhere deep within, there might be a path to reclaiming her lost honor. But the cost of that redemption remains a painful mystery, tangled in the web of duty and loss. The realization that her very identity has been molded by both relentless sacrifice and harsh betrayal leaves her with a bittersweet understanding. The path forward will require a courage she has never truly known. In the echoing silence of her confinement, Seline's internal battle is a poignant reminder of the human and shifter spirit's capacity to endure even the darkest of trials. It is a testament to the enduring hope that, despite the weight of duty and the scars of betrayal, there remains a flicker of light, a promise that the soul, though battered, can still rise and reclaim its destiny. And in that delicate balance, between obligation and the yearning for personal redemption, Seline finds herself poised on the precipice of a new, uncertain dawn. The onslaught of the crowd main content summary. In this segment, the focus shifts to the arrival of the secondary characters, the sneering guards, disdainful pack members, and the murmuring crowd assembled outside the dungeon. Their mocking, laughter, harsh whispers, and critical stares set a tense, foreboding atmosphere as Seline is dragged out, laying the groundwork for the public trial that looms ahead. Dragged from the confines of her dismal cell, Seline's return to the outside world is met with an onslaught of scorn and derision as she is hauled through the labyrinthine corridors of the prison. The echo of her footsteps blends with a chorus of mocking jeers from both guards and fellow inmates alike. The guards, hardened by years of duty and cruelty, smirk as they tighten their grip on her arms. Their voices, low and laced with contempt, call out sarcastic greetings, as if addressing a fallen monarch now reduced to a mere commoner. "Look at her now, once a Luna, now nothing more than a disgrace," one guard jeers, his tone dripping with bitter amusement. Around her, the atmosphere is charged with a mix of derision and anticipation. Fellow prisoners, their faces etched with hardened indifference and fleeting pity, laugh at her misfortune. Some exchange glances, their eyes reflecting a cocktail of schadenfreude and silent judgment. In every mocking snort and derisive whisper, Seline hears echoes of the past, a reminder of the glory she once embodied and the profound betrayal that has led her to this degrading moment. For a brief instant, The clamor of the guards and prisoners merges into a singular, relentless cacophony of scorn, accentuating the depth of her fall from grace. Soon, the harsh institutional corridors give way to the open expanse outside the prison walls, a threshold where an even larger audience awaits. The crowd gathered here is a formidable assembly, comprised of shifters from various packs, each bearing witness to Seline's public humiliation. As she is forced along a winding path toward the looming edifice of the Great Hall, the murmurs of the onlookers swell into a tide of critical voices. Every step she takes seems to intensify the scrutiny, as if the very air is saturated with judgment. Faces in the crowd are a mosaic of reactions. Some eyes narrow in suspicion, others flash with condescension, and a few reveal traces of sorrow at witnessing such a fall from grace. The tension is palpable. It clings to the air like a tangible force. Whispers ripple through the crowd, punctuated by sharp laughter and biting remarks. "The fallen Luna," someone hisses in a tone meant to ridicule, while another mutters, "Who would have thought the once proud would stoop so low?" These utterances, though delivered in hushed tones, reverberate with the collective weight of tradition and the unspoken expectation that leaders must never falter. The critical stares and whispered condemnations are not confined solely to the common shifters. Even members of the pack's elite, those who once revered her, now regard her with a mix of disbelief and disdain. Their eyes, cold and calculating, seem to dissect every nuance of her appearance, each ragged strand of hair, every smudge on her face, and file them away as evidence of her decline. In this public spectacle, her disgrace is no longer a private agony, but a performance for the entire shifter world, an event orchestrated by those in power to reassert their dominance and control. As Seline is marched closer to the majestic yet intimidating doors of the Great Hall, the murmurs intensify, forming a dissonant symphony of skepticism and anticipation. The crowd's reaction is a mirror reflecting the fractured loyalties within the pack, hinting at the tumult that is about to unfold. Each critical gaze from the crowd seems to weigh on her, a silent chorus that amplifies the sense of impending judgment. The air is thick with the promise of public scrutiny, a trial not just of facts, but of character and legacy. Yet, amidst this sea of hostile faces and bitter whispers, there is an undercurrent of tension that hints at what is to come. The atmosphere is not merely one of derision. It is charged with an expectant energy, as if the crowd itself is holding its breath for the moment when truth and justice will finally collide. In this charged environment, every scoff and derisive remark serves as both a personal affront and a prelude to the spectacle of the forthcoming trial. Seline's forced march towards the Great Hall becomes a crucible in which her fate, and that of the entire pack, will soon be decided under the unyielding gaze of the assembly. In these moments, the public humiliation transcends personal disgrace. It becomes a pivotal act that will define the future of the pack. The mocking laughter, the scornful whispers, and the relentless scrutiny from every corner of the crowd converge to create an atmosphere of almost unbearable pressure. Seline, though battered and broken on the outside, carries within her a flicker of resolve. Deep down, even as each sneer and every dismissive comment stings, she steels herself against the tide of judgment. For beyond the immediate shock and humiliation lies the looming trial, a stage upon which the full measure of her loyalty, her sacrifices, and her true worth will be weighed. The trial begins at the Great Hall main content summary. In this segment, the setting shifts to the imposing Great Hall where Seline's trial unfolds. Under piercing lights, and amidst an atmosphere thick with tension, all eyes are fixed on her. As the pack gathers, the presence of powerful alphas, including the ruthless Leo, alongside Jace, Cedric, and other influential figures, sets the stage for a dramatic confrontation. Leo's first declaration reverberates through the hall, heralding the beginning of a high-stakes trial that promises to challenge Seline's very existence. The Great Hall looms before Seline like an ancient Colosseum, its vast interior carved from cold stone and bathed in an eerie, almost spectral light. As she is led toward the massive, ornate doors, every step seems to echo with the weight of history and the burden of judgment. The high vaulted ceiling arches overhead, adorned with intricate carvings that whisper of bygone eras of honor and ruthlessness. Sunlight, filtered through tall, stained glass windows, splinters into fragments of color that dance across the polished marble floor. But these fractured beams of hope do little to warm the oppressive chill that pervades the room. Inside, the atmosphere is charged with anticipation and dread. A hushed murmur of voices permeates the space as members of the pack, from lowly rank-and-file shifters to the elite alphas, gather in tight formation. Their eyes, cold and unyielding, fix upon Seline as if her very presence could tip the scales of fate. Every whispered remark, every exchanged glance between onlookers, adds to the palpable tension that saturates the hall. Here, in this cavernous court of shifters, the air vibrates with the power of tradition, the raw energy of ancient laws, and the stark reality of impending retribution. At the center of this formidable assembly sits Leo, the embodiment of cold, authority, and ruthless ambition. Elevated upon a grand dais, his throne is no mere chair but a symbol of unchallenged power. Crafted from dark, weathered wood and inlaid with glistening metal, it exudes an aura of relentless dominion. Leo reclines with an air of imperious detachment, his piercing gaze sweeping over the gathered crowd as though he alone commands the very fabric of destiny. His presence is magnetic, drawing every eye and commanding a reverence that borders on fear. Flanking Leo are other key figures who lend their authority to the proceedings. Cedric, a man whose quiet efficiency and unwavering resolve have earned him a place among the pack's most respected leaders, sits to Leo's right. His features are carved with the lines of experience, his eyes reflecting both calculated wisdom and a hint of sympathy, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of the moment. Meanwhile, Jace, whose very arrival earlier had sent ripples through the crowd, stands with a dignified yet determined air. His gaze, warm yet steely, meets Seline's as if silently vowing to protect the truth beneath the veneer of deception. The silence is broken when Leo rises from his throne, his movement deliberate and laden with authority. Every eye in the hall follows his ascent as he steps forward, his voice, a deep, resonant tone, slicing through the murmurs and hushed conversations. In that moment, the hall seems to hold its breath. Time itself appears to slow as the first words of judgment are poised to be spoken. Today, Leo begins, his tone both commanding and cold. We stand united before the laws of our pack to address the gravest of betrayals. Seline, once a beacon of loyalty and honor, now faces charges so severe that they shake the very foundation of our traditions. His words reverberate off the stone walls, each syllable punctuating the silence like a hammer striking an anvil. The gravity of his declaration leaves an indelible mark on the hearts of all present, a stark reminder that this is no ordinary trial, but a reckoning of fate. As Leo continues, his voice grows even more forceful, each word dripping with disdain and righteous fury. You are accused of a heinous crime, the poisoning of Bella, the consort, and our unborn heir. The evidence, meticulously gathered, speaks for itself. Every vial, every entry in your personal journal, has been placed to confirm your guilt. His gaze sweeps over the gathered assembly, ensuring that each shifter understands the magnitude of the charges laid before Seline. The air in the hall seems to thicken with the weight of accusation and the unyielding certainty of retribution. In that charged moment, the atmosphere transforms into something almost tangible, a force that presses down on Seline from every direction. The murmurs of dissent and the occasional scornful laugh from a corner of the crowd become a deafening chorus, underscoring the isolation and despair that have now come to define her existence. Even as the heavy words of judgment fill the space, the faces in the crowd betray a spectrum of emotions. Some are hardened by duty and tradition, while others display hints of pity and reluctant disbelief at the fall of a once revered Luna. As the echoes of Leo's initial proclamation fade, the stage is set for the unfolding drama of the trial. Every detail, the intricate interplay of light and shadow on the marble floor, the imposing presence of the alphas, and the collective, unyielding gaze of the pack, converges to create an atmosphere of foreboding. It is a moment where destiny hangs in the balance, and where every word spoken within these hallowed walls promises to shape the future of the pack. With a final, decisive glance, Leo signals that the proceedings will now commence, and the trial of Seline, with all its harrowing implications, is about to begin. The clash of accusation and defiance. Main content summary. In this segment, tensions soar as Seline confronts the ruthless Leo. Accusations fly amid the unveiling of damning evidence, a crystal vial and a leather journal, while witnesses like Sarah and Lady Catherine add their voices to the chorus of dissent. The air grows thick with conflicting loyalties. Some in the crowd stand firmly behind Leo, while others seem to sense the injustice in Celine's words. Amid this charged exchange, hints of an impending intervention from Jace begin to surface, setting the stage for a dramatic shift in the trial's dynamic. Leo's voice, cold and unyielding, cuts through the charged silence of the Great Hall as he addresses Seline once more. "You stand accused of poisoning Bella, a betrayal that strikes at the very heart of our pack's unity," he intones, his eyes narrowing into a glare that seems to pierce her soul. The hall shudders under the weight of his declaration, every shifter's gaze fixated on the unfolding drama. In response, Seline lifts her chin, her voice steady despite the torrent of emotion swirling within her. "I did not kill Bella," she replies, each word measured yet brimming with quiet defiance. "Every piece of evidence from that crystal vial to the pages in my journal has been manipulated to frame me. I stand before you, not as a murderer, but as a victim of deceit and betrayal." Her words reverberate off the stone walls, stirring murmurs of uncertainty among some members of the crowd, while others snicker in dismissive disbelief. A tense silence follows before a witness steps forward. Sarah, known for her unwavering loyalty and honesty, speaks with a tremor in her voice. "I have served this pack for many years," she says, "and I have seen Seline work tirelessly for its benefit. I know her heart, and I can say with certainty that she would never resort to such treachery." Her testimony, soft yet sincere, creates a ripple of doubt amid the previously unanimous conviction of the assembly. Yet, not all are swayed. Lady Catherine, Celine's own mother, rises next, her voice carrying the weight of personal anguish and resolute truth. "My daughter has sacrificed more than words can tell," she declares, glancing pointedly at Leo. "I have witnessed her courage, her unyielding commitment, and her endless sacrifices for the pack. The evidence presented is nothing more than a contrived narrative designed to destroy her legacy." Her words ignite a murmur of agreement from a section of the audience, deepening the divide between those loyal to Leo and those who recall Celine's past glories. Leo, visibly irate, dismisses these testimonies with a curt laugh. "You speak of loyalty and sacrifice," he sneers. "But what do you know of duty? This evidence, so carefully curated, leaves no room for doubt. The crystal vial, discovered in your chambers, bears the very essence of the poison that ended Bella's life." He gestures dismissively toward the vial, now placed under a spotlight as if it were an unassailable relic of guilt. Celine's eyes flash with indignation. "That vial was planted, stolen evidence to ensure my downfall," she counters sharply. "And as for my journal," she continues, holding her gaze steady, "it is nothing more than a personal record of my struggles, twisted beyond recognition to serve as a tool of oppression." Her words are punctuated by the quiet gasps of those in the crowd who begin to question the narrative that has been force-fed to them. As the verbal sparring escalates, the atmosphere in the Great Hall grows almost unbearable. The crowd is split. Some shifters, with stern expressions and furrowed brows, seem to rally behind Leo's unwavering authority, while others exchange furtive glances and hushed whispers, their doubts about the evidence and its origins intensifying with every passing moment. The tension is palpable, a living entity that creeps along the walls and seems to pulsate with each heartbeat. In the midst of this maelstrom, Leo's tone becomes increasingly venomous. "You dare to defy the judgment of your alpha!" he bellows, his voice echoing through the hall. "Your words may stir pity, but they do not erase the truth. The records are clear, and the betrayal is undeniable." His gaze, as sharp as a blade, falls upon Seline, challenging her very existence. For a moment, silence reigns. Then, a subtle shift occurs near the edge of the crowd. Jace, whose earlier presence had been a mere murmur among the assembly, now steps forward, his eyes locked onto the turbulent exchange. His expression is one of quiet determination, a counterpoint to the ferocity of Leo's accusation. Though he remains silent for now, the very act of his presence sends a ripple through the crowd, a sign that not all is as it seems. Seline seizes upon this moment, her voice rising with a mixture of desperation and fierce resolve. "I stand here not just for myself, but for every member of our pack who has been misled by lies," she declares. "I have dedicated my life to duty, to protecting our legacy, yet I am now cast aside as a traitor. How can such injustice be allowed to stand?" Her words hang in the air, charged with the potential to upend the established order. Leo's retort is swift and biting. "Injustice?" he echoes mockingly. "You speak of injustice while clinging to fabricated truths. Your so-called evidence is nothing but a ruse, a desperate attempt to mask your failures and to escape the consequences of your actions." His voice rises, a crescendo of fury that reverberates off the cold stone of the hall. In response, the murmurs of the crowd intensify. Some shout in fervent agreement with Leo, their voices overlapping in a chorus of condemnation. Others, however, are drawn to Seline's impassioned plea, their whispers soft, yet laced with growing support. Amid the tumult, the divide becomes starkly evident. A chasm between those bound by blind loyalty to Leo's authority and those who yearn for the unvarnished truth that Seline so desperately seeks to reveal. Within this maelstrom of accusations and counter-accusations, each piece of evidence, the crystal vial, the leather-bound journal, the testimonies of trusted witnesses, takes on a weight beyond mere objects. They transform into symbols of a deeper conflict, the struggle between an unyielding, oppressive power and the resilient spirit of one who dared to challenge it. And as the hall reaches a fevered pitch, it becomes clear that this confrontation is far from over. The seeds of rebellion, nurtured in the crucible of Seline's defiance, have begun to sprout among the crowd. As the tension mounts, and every word from both sides reverberates with life-altering consequences, the stage is set for an imminent turning point. With each exchange, the line between loyalty and dissent grows ever more blurred, and the trial teeters on the brink of chaos. In that charged moment, as Leo's authority and Seline's defiant truth clash with the force of a tempest, it is evident that the true battle for the soul of the pack is only just beginning. The turning point, Jace's intervention, and a shocking revelation. Main content summary. In this segment, the tension in the Great Hall reaches its peak as Jace finally makes his dramatic entrance. With unwavering authority and a determined gaze, he invokes his right of substitution, challenging the established order. His declaration not only shakes the very foundations of the trial, but also hints at a deep, fated connection with Seline, a bond that transcends duty and speaks to the supernatural forces that guide their destinies. As the heated exchange between Seline and Leo reaches a fevered pitch, a sudden stillness begins to ripple through the assembly. For a long, breathless moment, the charged atmosphere seems poised on the edge of chaos, until a single resolute figure steps forward from the back of the crowd. Jace. His presence is like a bolt of lightning in a stormy sky, unexpected, commanding, and impossible to ignore. Jace moves with a purpose that silences even the most vociferous detractors. With each measured step towards the dais, the murmurs subside, and all eyes shift in unison to follow his progress. His stature exudes a quiet authority, and his gaze, clear and unwavering, seems to speak directly to the very soul of the gathering. For a moment, the turbulent clamor of voices and the clashing accusations are replaced by an almost tangible hush, a pregnant pause that heralds the beginning of something monumental. When Jace reaches the center of the hall, he does not hesitate. His voice, firm and resonant, slices through the lingering tension like a finely honed blade. "Enough," he declares, his tone brooking no argument. "I invoke my right of substitution." In that instant, a ripple of astonishment surges through the crowd. The concept is both audacious and unprecedented. None have dared challenge the verdict by claiming such a right, yet here stands Jace, challenging the very authority that Leo so ruthlessly wields. His words ignite a flurry of whispers and gasps. Some in the crowd are visibly taken aback by this bold move. Others, with eyes alight with hope or curiosity, lean in as if to catch every syllable. Even Leo's steely demeanor falters for a heartbeat, his eyes narrowing in a mix of disbelief and irritation. The balance of power in the room shifts palpably as Jace's intervention introduces a new dynamic into the proceedings, a shift that promises to upend the established narrative. "Jace," Leo hisses, his voice laced with contempt, "you dare to question the judgment of your alpha? To assume authority in a matter so beyond your remit?" Yet even as Leo's words ring out, Jace's expression remains unyielding, his gaze fixed squarely on Seline, as if silently affirming a truth that transcends the formalities of the trial. "Look into my eyes," Jace commands, his voice softened by an underlying warmth that hints at a personal connection far deeper than mere duty. "You know that the bond between us is not forged by obligation or by the whims of power. It is destiny. I have searched far and wide for my true mate, and here, in this moment, I see her. Seline, you are not alone. I stand by you not as an interloper, but as the one who has been waiting for this very day." A murmur of awe and excitement ripples through the crowd. The atmosphere, once dominated by cold, unyielding authority, begins to crack with the heat of a burgeoning revolution. Jace's words are not merely a challenge, they are a revelation. His declaration of their bond, imbued with a mystic certainty, casts a spell over the assembly. It is as if the very air around them shimmers with the promise of fate, and the hall seems to pulse with the heartbeat of an ancient unspoken power. Seline's eyes fill with a mixture of shock and reluctant hope. In that moment, the deep well of isolation and despair that had so long defined her existence is met by a luminous beacon, a promise of connection, understanding, and perhaps even salvation. The idea that she is not merely a sacrificial pawn, but someone destined to share a profound, almost otherworldly love ignites a spark within her. It is a spark that defies the darkness, a declaration that, despite the cruelty of her current circumstances, she has not lost the capacity to be cherished and understood. As Jace's intervention unfolds, subtle yet unmistakable shifts ripple through the gathered pack. Some of the previously unwavering supporters of Leo now exchange glances filled with uncertainty. Others, once cold and dismissive, appear visibly moved by the truth in Jace's words. The balance of loyalty begins to waver, as if the crowd itself is re-evaluating the narratives that have been imposed upon them for so long. In this charged moment, the right of substitution is not just a legal maneuver, it is a symbolic reclaiming of agency and truth. Jace's bold act not only challenges Leo's draconian authority, but also reaffirms the ancient mystical ties that bind true mates together. It is an assertion that love and destiny can triumph over even the most entrenched systems of power. As the murmur of astonishment gradually settles into a new tentative consensus, Jace extends his hand toward Seline, a gesture filled with promise and defiance. "Come with me," he whispers, his voice both a command and an invitation. And let us show them what it means to be truly bound by destiny. In that instant, the future of the trial, and perhaps of the pack itself, hangs, in a delicate balance, poised on the edge of an irrevocable turning point. Counterarguments and the reversal of fate main content summary. In this segment, the heated trial escalates into a fierce debate. Leo's damning accusations clash with Seline's impassioned defense as witnesses like Cedric and Sarah step forward. With every piece of evidence laid bare, from the telltale marks of Bella's essence to the subtle signs of magical manipulation, Seline fights not only to clear her name, but also to expose the betrayal festering within the pack. The atmosphere is charged with disappointment, determination, and a growing hope that the truth might yet prevail. Leo's words continue to echo through the vast hall, each syllable a calculated blow aimed at shattering Seline's already fragile resolve. "Your guilt is evident," he proclaims, his voice resonating with cold authority. "The crystal vial, recovered from your private chambers, bears the unmistakable residue of the poison that claimed Bella's life. Furthermore, your personal journal, its pages filled with entries that you claim detail your struggles, has been doctored beyond recognition, twisted into a narrative that seeks to absolve you of responsibility." His tone is scornful, every word intended to undermine her credibility before the assembled pack. Seline, standing firm despite the relentless barrage, meets Leo's accusations with a defiant glare. "I did not commit this heinous act," she retorts, her voice trembling with a mixture of pain and resolve. "That vial was planted. Its presence in my quarters is the work of those who wish to see me fall. And my journal? It is nothing. More than the honest record of my suffering and sacrifice, a chronicle of the burdens I have borne in the name of duty. Do not let these contrived evidences blind you to the truth." Her words hang in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken betrayal. A murmur arises from the crowd as the tension shifts. Cedric, whose measured demeanor commands respect, steps forward with a calm yet piercing tone. "I have known Seline for many years," he states, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. "I have witnessed her unwavering commitment to this pack, and the countless sacrifices she has made. It is not in her nature to betray the very essence of our shared honor. The evidence against her must be scrutinized. Look not only at the physical proofs, but at the inconsistencies that lie beneath." His measured interjection casts a shadow of doubt over Leo's accusations, inviting the listeners to reconsider the narrative they have so readily accepted. Sarah, her eyes reflecting a deep-seated loyalty, follows with her own heartfelt testimony. "I have served alongside Seline through times of both peace and conflict," she affirms, her voice quivering with emotion. "Her actions have always been driven by love for our pack, not by the selfish ambition to cause harm. I remember the long nights, the battles fought side by side. How could someone capable of such devotion commit such an unforgivable act? The evidence presented is but a carefully constructed illusion, meant to mask a far graver betrayal." Her words, sincere and resolute, strike a chord with many in the crowd, igniting whispers of sympathy and shared disbelief. Amid the escalating debate, Seline steps forward, her eyes scanning the faces before her as she clutches a small, inconspicuous token, a fragment of fabric imbued with a faint, lingering fragrance. "I offer you this," she declares, her voice rising with a newfound determination. "A remnant of what once was real. Notice the subtle traces, the slight, almost imperceptible signs of a unique essence. Bella's scent, the faint signature of her presence, remains intact on this cloth. It is not the mark of death, but of life, a life that continues to defy the narrative of betrayal." The revelation sends a ripple of astonishment through the crowd, as skeptical glances begin to yield to hesitant hope. Leo's face contorts into a mask of fury, as he dismisses her claim with a sneer. Such sentimental relics hold no sway against the cold logic of evidence, he spits, his tone both dismissive and scornful. You weave tales of loyalty and betrayal, yet the facts remain unchanged. The vial, the journal, they all point to your guilt. His words, intended to reaffirm his authority, are met with a countering chorus of dissent from those who now dare to question the established order. In that charged moment, Seline's internal anguish becomes palpable. Her heart aches as she realizes the depth of the betrayal, not only from those who have turned their backs on her, but from a pack that once embraced her with unwavering trust. The realization stings like a bitter toxin, yet within that pain, a spark of defiance burns brighter. I stand here, not as a criminal, but as a servant who has been deceived, she asserts, her voice echoing off the ancient stone. Let us not forget the sacrifices made in the name of unity, the countless battles fought, the lives laid down in service of our pack. How can you now allow falsehoods to overshadow that legacy? The atmosphere in the Great Hall grows increasingly volatile as the debate intensifies. The assembly appears to split into factions. One group, emboldened by Leo's rigid assertions, clings to the conventional narrative. The other, stirred by the impassioned defense of Seline and the compelling testimonies of Cedric and Sarah, begins to question the veracity of the evidence. Whispers spread like wildfire, whispers of doubt, of hidden agendas, of an injustice that threatens the very core of their shared identity. In this maelstrom of words and emotions, subtle yet significant shifts occur. Some of the staunch supporters of Leo exchange uncertain glances, their confidence eroded by the sincerity of Seline's plight and the mounting inconsistencies in the accusations against her. The once monolithic wall of condemnation now shows signs of fissures, cracks through which the light of truth might eventually shine. As the debate reaches a crescendo, the gravity of Seline's predicament becomes all the more evident. The evidence she presents, a delicate interplay of physical traces and the intangible weight of her honor, stands as a silent testament to her innocence, even as the voices of betrayal and accusation threaten to drown it out. In that moment, the trial transforms from a mere legal proceeding into a profound contest of values. The rigid adherence to tradition versus the transformative power of truth and redemption. And so, with each piercing word and each heartfelt plea, the stage is set for an imminent turning point, a moment where the tide of fate may finally be swayed by the courage of one who dares to stand for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. The climactic revelation, Unmasking the Deception main content summary. In this segment, Seline shatters the courtroom's oppressive atmosphere with a stunning revelation. Bella is alive. With damning evidence in hand, she exposes the intricate conspiracy involving Bella, Ian, and her own unjust framing. The revelation sends shockwaves through the assembly, as the crowd erupts in disbelief, and the alphas are forced to confront a narrative that challenges their authority. Seline's impassioned declaration, "I did not kill Bella," marks a turning point in the trial, offering a glimmer of hope that her fate, and that of the pack, may yet be redeemed. A heavy silence blankets the great hall as Seline takes a deep, steadying breath. The charged air seems to hold its collective breath as she raises her voice, determined to unveil the truth that has been buried under layers of deceit. "I stand before you today to declare one undeniable fact," she begins, her voice clear and resonant against the cold stone walls. "Bella is alive." A ripple of disbelief erupts from the crowd, followed by a sudden, palpable murmur that swells into a cacophony of astonished gasps and urgent whispers. The revelation slices through the tension like a blade, forcing every soul in the hall to re-examine the narrative they had so readily accepted. Eyes widen and frowns turn into expressions of shock as the assembled shifters, from the lowliest member to the most formidable alpha, are confronted with the truth. Seline continues, her tone unwavering despite the storm of emotions around her. The evidence is before you, a token, a remnant of Bella's presence, and tangible proof that contradicts the fabricated accounts of her death. Carefully, she reveals a small, intricately woven piece of fabric that still carries a faint, unmistakable scent. A scent that, to those who knew, belonged to Bella. This fabric, untouched by the decay of death, speaks volumes. It is a testament that the betrayal against me was not only a crime against my honor, but a meticulously orchestrated plot to conceal a far greater deception. At this, Leo's face contorts with fury as he leaps to dismiss her claims. Such sentimental artifacts mean nothing, he roars, his voice trembling with rage. You dare parade these as evidence when the cold, hard facts remain unchanged. The poison vial in your doctored journal leave no room for doubt. His words are forceful, intended to crush the emerging hope among the witnesses, yet they only serve to highlight the cracks in his narrative. Undeterred, Seline's eyes blaze with defiance. I did not kill Bella, she declares, her voice rising over the clamor of the dissenting crowd. Instead, I was set up, ensnared in a web of lies spun by those who would see me destroyed. Her gaze sweeps the hall, daring anyone to challenge her truth. Bella's life has been deliberately concealed from us, and the evidence, the scent, the preserved tokens of her existence, tells a story of betrayal that is far more insidious than any act of murder I could have committed. Her words hang in the air, heavy with both sorrow and fierce determination. The reaction in the great hall is immediate and explosive. A murmur grows into a roar as the crowd divides sharply between those still clinging to Leo's imposed version of events and those now captivated by Seline's impassioned appeal. Whispers of injustice and deceit cascade among the gathered shifters, their voices intertwining into a rising tide of dissent. Cedric, whose measured tone had earlier lent a voice of reason to Seline's defense, steps forward once more. Consider the evidence, he urges, his voice steady and resolute. The very items Seline presents do not align with the supposed finality of death. They are remnants of a life that continues. Bella's life. His words resonate with a quiet power, and even a few of Leo's staunch supporters appear visibly shaken by the implication. Sarah, her eyes glistening with both empathy and indignation, adds, I have known Seline to be a pillar of integrity and sacrifice. To accuse her without irrefutable proof is a betrayal of everything we hold dear. The signs are undeniable. Bella is among us, and the true betrayal runs much deeper than you have dared to admit. Her testimony, sincere and impassioned, further erodes the foundation of Leo's claims. The air in the hall is now electric with uncertainty and mounting pressure. Every whispered conversation and exchanged glance seems to contribute to a collective awakening among the pack. Even as Leo rages against the tide of emerging truth, his voice is met with a growing chorus of dissent. The once unassailable authority of his accusations begins to crumble under the weight of Seline's evidence and the undeniable aura of her resolve. In this climactic moment, Seline's declaration becomes a rallying cry, a bold repudiation of the lies that have long imprisoned her. I did not kill Bella, she proclaims once more, her voice resonating like a clarion call throughout the hall. I was framed, and the true conspirators have hidden the evidence of their treachery in plain sight. This revelation is not just about me. It is about the future of our pack, about the sanctity of truth, and the need for justice. Her words reverberate with an intensity that forces even the most skeptical to pause and reconsider. As the crowd reacts, some faces transform, from hardened skepticism to expressions of cautious hope, while others remain entrenched in their allegiance to the old order. The division among the shifters is stark and unmistakable, a chasm that hints at a possible upheaval of the established power structure. At this critical juncture, the trial is no longer a simple legal proceeding, but a battle for the soul of the pack. Seline's impassioned revelation, underpinned by irrefutable evidence and the raw intensity of her inner truth, offers a tantalizing glimpse of a future where justice might prevail. The impact of her words, "I did not kill Bella," resounds through the Great Hall, setting the stage for a turning point that promises to redefine loyalties and reshape destinies. The final confrontation, a battle for honor and truth main content summary. In this explosive climax, Seline faces off against her most treacherous foe, Ian, in a fierce struggle that tests her resolve, strength, and undying love for Jace. Amidst a flurry of brutal physical clashes and searing verbal exchanges, Seline fights with every ounce of her being to defend her honor, expose the conspiracies that have ensnared her, and protect those she holds dear. The tension in the Great Hall shifts abruptly as the atmosphere morphs from courtroom drama into an all-out battlefield. Amid the chaos of conflicting voices and clashing allegiances, Ian, once a trusted figure turned betrayer, steps forward, his presence igniting a spark of violent fury. His eyes, cold and predatory, fix on Seline as he advances with a snarl that promises retribution. The murmur of the crowd fades into a charged silence, as if every shifter present senses that this is the moment when fate will finally be decided. Without warning, Ian lunges at Seline, his massive frame closing this distance in a burst of aggression. The first blow lands with a savage thud, and Seline instinctively braces herself. Time seems to slow as she dodges his clumsy swing. Her heart pounds in her ears as adrenaline surges through her veins. "You think you can defy destiny?" Ian growls, his voice rough and taunting, echoing off the stone walls. With a fierce cry, Seline retaliates. Her movements are a blend of raw instinct and disciplined training honed over years of sacrifice for the pack. She weaves between his attacks, landing precise strikes that speak of both her desperation and her unyielding determination. "I fight, not only for my life, but for the truth that you've twisted into a weapon against me," she shouts, her words cutting through the clamor like a sharpened blade. Their clash becomes a whirlwind of action. Fists, kicks, and desperate grappling that sends shockwaves through the assembled crowd. Each blow Seline lands is driven by a profound need to reclaim her honor and expose the lies that have nearly ruined her. With every parry, every counterstrike, she silently vows that she will not allow her fate to be dictated by those who manipulate and betray. Her eyes burn with both fury and sorrow as she recalls the countless sacrifices made for the sake of the pack, a legacy that now hangs in the balance. As the physical confrontation intensifies, the verbal sparring grows just as heated. Ian sneers. "Your defiance is futile, Luna. You cannot escape the destiny that was written for you." His words drip with contempt, each syllable an attempt to belittle her resolve. But Seline's retort is swift and searing. "No," she replies, her voice a potent mix of pain and determination. "I will not be your pawn any longer. I stand for truth and honor, values that you have long forgotten." Her declaration reverberates throughout the hall, momentarily overpowering the clashing sounds of combat. In the midst of the fray, the crowd is thrown into disarray. Some shifters cheer Seline's defiant stand, their voices rising in support, while others, still loyal to the old order, murmur their disapproval. The divided loyalties fuel the intensity of the confrontation, each spectator's reaction amplifying the stakes of this final battle. Through the turmoil, Seline's thoughts remain laser-focused on protecting not just herself, but also the love that has kindled hope within her, a love embodied by Jace. The thought of Jace, his unwavering gaze, and the quiet strength of his presence fuels her determination to overcome the betrayal that Ian represents. As the duel reaches a fever pitch, Seline manages to break free from Ian's oppressive grip. With a well-timed maneuver, she delivers a decisive kick that sends him reeling backward, a moment that crystallizes her resolve. Blood trickles from a split lip, but her spirit remains unbroken. "I will never yield," she declares, her voice raw with emotion. not when the very essence of who I am is under attack. Her words, filled with both defiance and heartbreak, resonate powerfully with those who witness her struggle. In that explosive moment, every detail becomes magnified. The scuff of her boots against the cold floor, the ragged breaths mingling with the echoes of shattered trust, and the fervent glances exchanged between Seline and Jace. It is as if time itself stands still, and in that stillness, the truth of her sacrifice is laid bare. Every cut, every bruise, tells a story of a woman who has given everything for a cause greater than herself, a cause that now demands justice. Ian, though bruised and reeling, is far from defeated. He rallies for another attack, his eyes flashing, with unyielding malice. But Seline, buoyed by the support of those few who dare to see the truth, meets his onslaught with renewed vigor. Each movement, every counterstrike, is imbued with the power of a destiny that refuses to be subjugated by treachery. "I fight for the future of our pack," she cries, "for a world where betrayal will no longer wear the mask of loyalty." Her voice, rising above the clamor, galvanizes a new wave of energy within the hall, one that promises a reckoning for all who have profited from deceit. The confrontation between Seline and Ian is not merely a physical battle. It is the culmination of years of hidden pain and betrayal. It is the final stand against the forces that have sought to control her fate and extinguish her light. In every blow exchanged, in every fierce word shouted, Seline reclaims a piece of her dignity and ignites a spark of rebellion that reverberates throughout the pack. As the clash intensifies, it becomes clear that this moment will define the future. Seline, with the blood of her determination mingling with tears of resolve, stands as a beacon against the darkness that has long plagued her. And though the battle rages on, the unmistakable message is heard by all. She will not be silenced. She will not be broken. The fight for truth, honor, and the love that sustains her is just beginning. And nothing, not even the treachery of those who would see her fall, can stop her from rising again. The aftermath, shifting loyalties, and the rise of a new Dawn main content summary. In this final segment of the trial, the pack begins to fracture as the truth is laid bare. Members who once unwaveringly supported Leo now turn their backs on him, replaced by murmurs of awe and whispered hope as Seline's vindication resonates. Witnesses like Sarah and Cedric, along with the broader crowd, reveal their inner turmoil and newfound determination, marking the beginning of a transformative shift in power within the pack. As the echoes of the trial's final declarations fade into a heavy, contemplative silence, the Great Hall transforms from a battleground of accusations to a forum of introspection and uneasy realization. One by one, the pack members' faces, etched with years of loyalty, duty, and hardened tradition, begin to reveal cracks in their long-held convictions. The overwhelming display of evidence and the impassioned defense by Seline have shattered the veneer of unassailable authority that Leo once commanded. The first signs of change emerge subtly at the edges of the hall. A low murmur spreads among the assembled shifters, growing from hushed whispers to more distinct expressions of disbelief. Eyes that once burned with unwavering admiration for Leo now flicker with uncertainty. The younger shifters, in particular, exchange glances laden with a mix of astonishment and hope, as if they have been quietly waiting for this very moment, a moment when the truth forces them to reconsider a past built on manipulation and deceit. Sarah, standing among those who have long witnessed Seline's sacrifices, looks on with a deep, pained resolve. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears as she recalls the countless nights spent in the service of a pack that now seems lost in the grip of an oppressive regime. "I always believed in Seline," she murmurs to herself, her voice barely audible over the shifting tide of conversation. "And now, as the truth unfolds, I see that our loyalty must be to justice and honor, not to a tyrant who twists every truth for his own gain." Her internal monologue resonates with those who, like her, once placed blind faith in Leo's judgment. Cedric, too, wears a conflicted expression. The stoic leader, who had long maintained a calm and measured demeanor, now finds his convictions wavering. He recalls the many times he witnessed Seline's unwavering commitment, her countless acts of self-sacrifice in the name of unity and protection. With a heavy sigh, Cedric contemplates the depth of the betrayal. How did it come to this? He silently wonders. The very foundation of our pack was built on honor and duty, and yet we allowed ourselves to be deceived. His thoughts mirror those of many in the hall who now feel that the integrity of their leadership has been compromised beyond repair. In the midst of this internal revolution, the atmosphere becomes electric, with a sense of cautious optimism. Whispers of truth and redemption ripple through the crowd as more shifters begin to voice their doubts about Leo's actions. Some even step forward, daring to challenge the established order with quiet defiance. Their collective murmurs create a symphony of dissent, a chorus that grows louder with every passing moment. The previously monolithic front of loyalty to Leo now shows unmistakable fissures, as if the very structure of power is crumbling under the weight of undeniable evidence. Leo, sitting high upon his imposing throne, appears increasingly isolated as the tide turns against him. His once commanding gaze now falls upon a sea of disapproving faces, each one a silent indictment of his rule. The whispers swell into murmurs of condemnation, and for the first time, the might of his authority seems in jeopardy. In the midst of this transformative moment, the crowd's shifting sentiment signals not just a rejection of one man's tyranny, but the birth of a new order, one that values truth and integrity over blind obedience. Seline stands at the center of this unfolding metamorphosis, her expression a complex mixture of relief, sorrow, and resolute determination. The revelation that she did not commit the heinous act, coupled with the exposure of the true conspiracies behind Bella's staged demise, has begun to dismantle the carefully constructed narrative of guilt. In that vulnerable space, she sees the promise of a future where she might reclaim her honor, and by extension, restore the balance within the pack. Amidst the charged atmosphere, voices from the crowd begin to rise in support of Seline. Shifters who once trembled in the shadow of Leo's tyranny now dare to speak, their words tentative but determined. "Enough," one voice declares. "We deserve better than this web of lies." Another adds, "We must stand for what is right. Truth over tradition." These emerging declarations of dissent offer a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that had dominated the hall just moments before. The transformation is palpable, a slow yet irrevocable shift in power dynamics. The decision of the Alpha, once regarded as unchallengeable, is now subject to public scrutiny. In the aftermath of the trial, it is clear that the pack is poised on the brink of a new era. The wounds of betrayal run deep, but they also pave the way for healing and rebirth. For Seline, the road ahead is still fraught with uncertainty, yet the growing support from within the pack suggests that her journey towards redemption has only just begun. In this charged silence, where every whispered word and every shifting glance carries the weight of a possible revolution, the future of the pack hangs delicately in the balance. The seeds of change have been sown, and as the crowd disperses into clusters of newfound allegiance, one truth remains clear. The era of unchallenged tyranny is over. The pack, battered by betrayal yet resilient in spirit, now looks toward a horizon where truth, honor, and justice might finally prevail. The search for truth, a race against time. Main content. Summary. In this segment, the scene shifts from the courtroom to the outside world, where Seline, together with her trusted allies, Sarah, Iris, Adrian, and others, embark on a desperate quest to uncover the hidden conspiracy behind Ian's treachery and the dark magic entwined with Adrian's powers. The journey takes them through shadowed docks, cluttered warehouses, and the enigmatic corridors of Adrian's shop. In a race against time, every step is a piece of the puzzle, each conversation laden with urgency and resolve, as they push forward in the hope of piecing together the truth. Stepping out from the charged atmosphere of the Great Hall, Seline and her closest allies hasten into the night, their breaths visible in the cold air. The once hallowed echo of the trial has been replaced by the rhythmic splash of water against cobblestones as they make their way to the docks. Every stride is fueled by determination and the gnawing urgency to piece together the fragments of a conspiracy that has threatened not just Celine's honor, but the very future of their pack. "Time is not on our side," Seline whispers, her voice a blend of exhaustion and resolute determination as they near the bustling docks. The sharp tang of salt mingles with the distant murmur of the sea, a reminder of the countless secrets hidden beneath the surface. Sarah, ever vigilant, scans the area. "I saw Ian here before," she murmurs, eyes narrowing as she recalls a subtle detail, a glint on a warehouse door, an out-of-place package that had sparked her suspicion. The memory seems to animate her steps, lending urgency to her stride. Their first stop is a shadowy warehouse near the pier, its silhouette looming like a forgotten relic in the dim light. The group huddles together, their collective breaths a visible cloud of apprehension as they exchange brief, sharp instructions. "Keep your eyes peeled," Iris warns softly, her tone layered with both caution and an undercurrent of worry. Every detail could be the missing link. In hushed tones, they begin their search amid rows of neglected crates and dusty shelves, each step measured as though the very air held its breath in anticipation. Amid the silence, Adrian's presence is a stark contrast to the surrounding gloom. His knowledge of the arcane, honed over years of walking a perilous line between light and darkness, becomes invaluable. "There's a residue here, a peculiar shimmer," he notes, bending to examine a small metallic object half buried beneath a pile of discarded documents. His fingers trace a pattern that glows faintly in the low light, a subtle sign of magic at work. This isn't ordinary. It's the kind of enchantment that only dark magic can weave. His words send a chill through the group, the implications of his discovery hinting at the depths of Ian's deceit. Celine's mind races even as her allies scavenge for more clues. Every scrap of evidence, the unusual chemical smell on a crate, a stray footprint, the echo of whispered conversations behind locked doors, fuels her inner dialogue. Every moment counts. Every detail is a thread leading back to those who would see us broken. Her heart pounds not only with the physical exertion of the chase, but with the weight of responsibility, knowing that the truth they uncover could reshape their pack's destiny. As the team moves from the warehouse to the adjacent port area, the scene shifts to a more frenetic pace. The docks, illuminated by harsh industrial lights and the intermittent glare of passing ships, are a maze of activity. Here, the murmur of voices, the clatter of machinery, and the ever-present scent of the sea converge to create an atmosphere, both chaotic and charged with possibility. "Over here!" a dock worker shouts unexpectedly, breaking the tense silence. His eyes flicker with both fear and relief as he points toward a small storage facility tucked away in a corner of the dock. The group converges at the site, where Adrian inspects the door with meticulous care. "This place is off the grid," he observes quietly, almost in awe of the subtle magical wards that protect it. "It's exactly where Ian would hide his secrets." Seline exchanges a determined glance with Sarah. "Let's move quickly," she urges, her voice low yet brimming with unyielding resolve. Every minute we waste could be another minute lost in this web of deceit. Inside the storage facility, the atmosphere is even more claustrophobic. Dust motes dance in the thin beams of light that seep through cracked windows, and the musty odor of neglect pervades the space. As they search, the group's conversation becomes a rapid-fire exchange of observations. "Look, a ledger. Entries that don't match up with our usual shipments," one of the guards turned insider remarks, his tone urgent yet careful. Iris kneels beside a cluttered desk, scanning the pages with a growing frown. "These dates, they suggest a deliberate cover-up. Someone's been siphoning off evidence, fabricating numbers." The words hang heavy in the air, a clear sign that the conspiracy is far deeper than they had imagined. Every so often, Seline pauses to absorb the scene, her mind churning with both strategic calculations and emotional undercurrents. This is it, she thinks. Every clue brings us closer to unraveling the mystery behind Ian's treachery, and perhaps, in time, to reclaiming our lost honor. Her eyes narrow as she clutches a torn piece of fabric, a scrap that matches the one she had presented in the trial. Its texture, imbued with a lingering, familiar scent, confirms her worst fears. The plot to frame her was as calculated as it was malicious. The urgency in their voices and the rapid pace of their movements are punctuated by moments of raw, unfiltered emotion. In a brief exchange away from the prying eyes of the facility, Seline confides to Adrian, "I can't help but feel that every step we take now is a step towards reclaiming not just my truth, but the soul of our pack." Adrian's eyes soften, with a mix of empathy and quiet determination as he replies, "We're in this together, Seline. The magic here, this evidence, it's all pointing towards a deeper corruption, and together, we will expose it." Their journey through the labyrinth of secrets continues with an unspoken promise, a promise that every piece of evidence gathered, every whispered conversation deciphered, is a stepping stone toward a future where justice will finally prevail. With hearts pounding and minds focused, Seline and her team press on, their resolve unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. Every step forward is a testament to their courage, a beacon of hope that pierces the suffocating darkness of betrayal, guiding them ever closer to the truth that must be revealed. The Ultimate Confrontation, Reclaiming Destiny Main Content Summary. In this explosive climax, Seline faces her ultimate adversary in a direct, ferocious showdown. Every movement and word is charged with raw emotion as she confronts the mastermind behind the conspiracy. Amidst the chaos of a high-stakes battle, her unbreakable spirit and undeniable connection with Jace shine through, reaffirming their true mate bond and defying those who seek to control her fate. The night sky seems to hold its breath as Seline, emboldened by the evidence unearthed and the support of her loyal allies, steps into the heart of the final confrontation. In the shadowed ruins of an abandoned warehouse, where the conspiracies behind her downfall have been orchestrated, Seline finds herself face to face with the elusive architect of her misery. The air is thick with tension as every sound is amplified, the distant crash of waves against the docks, the whisper of the wind through broken windows, and the pounding of her own heart echoing in her ears. Across the cavernous space stands Ian, the traitor whose betrayal has woven this intricate web of deceit. His eyes burn with a feral intensity, mirroring the darkness of his intentions, as he slowly circles Seline. "So, you've come at last to face your fate," he sneers, his tone laced with condescension and malice. The very ground beneath their feet seems to tremble with the weight of their impending clash. Seline meets his gaze with an unwavering, fierce resolve. "No," she declares, her voice ringing out with a mix of defiance and pain. "I have come to reclaim my destiny and expose the treachery that has cost me everything." In that moment, the world around them fades into a blur, leaving only the raw energy of their confrontation. Every muscle in her body tenses, honed by years of sacrifice and the bitter sting of betrayal, ready to strike back against the injustice inflicted upon her. As the first blows are exchanged, the fight erupts into a symphony of violence and determination. Ian lunges, his movements predatory and ruthless, but Seline is swift and deliberate. She dodges his assault, countering with a series of precise strikes that speak of both instinct and relentless training. The clash of their physical might is punctuated by grunts, the shattering of debris, and the relentless echo of their footfalls in the cavernous space. In the midst of the melee, a sudden twist shifts the battle's momentum. A sharp, unexpected cry slices through the cacophony. Jace appears at the periphery of the brawl, his eyes fixed on Seline with a look that blends urgent determination with a tender, unspoken promise. His presence is electrifying, Every movement he makes is infused with a magnetic strength that draws the attention of every soul present. Without hesitation, he charges into the fray, positioning himself beside Seline as if his very essence were intertwined with hers. Together, "We are unbreakable," Jace shouts, his voice a clarion call that cuts through the chaos. In that charged moment, their bond transcends the physical. It is as if the air around them hums with a mystical energy that confirms what fate has long intended. Their eyes meet. A silent conversation of shared dreams, deep scars, and a love that defies the boundaries of convention. And in that glance lies the truth of their destined connection. Ian, enraged by this unexpected union, intensifies his attack. "You dare defy me by aligning with him?" he roars, his voice dripping with venomous scorn. But Seline, bolstered by the support of her true mate, responds with an intensity that shakes the very foundations of the warehouse. "I refuse to be a puppet in your twisted game," she retorts, her voice a blend of wrath and sorrow. "My life, my honor, and the love I share with Jace belong not to your machinations, but to our own destiny." Their exchange is a maelstrom of rapid-fire dialogue and visceral combat. Celine's blows are both physical and symbolic, a defiant strike against every injustice that has ever sought to chain her spirit. Each counter, each parry, is imbued with years of pent-up frustration and the determination to break free of the chains that have bound her. As the confrontation reaches a fever pitch, the air around them seems to ignite with the brilliance of their combined resolve, casting stark shadows that dance like the flicker of a long-awaited dawn. Amid the tumult, Ian manages to land a vicious blow, and for a split second Seline falters, her vision blurs with the sting of betrayal and the agony of loss. Yet, as she gathers herself, the warmth of Jace's hand finds hers, grounding her in the truth of their bond. "I will never yield to your tyranny," she vows, her voice resolute and echoing through the wreckage. "I am not defined by the darkness you cast upon me, but by the light that Jace and I share, a light that will guide us to freedom." In that climactic instant, the fight becomes more than a struggle for survival. It transforms into an assertion of identity and the reclamation of a legacy. Every blow Seline delivers carries the weight of a woman who has suffered, yet refuses to be subdued by the treachery of those who would see her broken. Her every word, every movement, is a testament to the indomitable spirit of one who has fought. Too long in silence, the battle rages on, and though the physical struggle is fierce, the emotional stakes are even higher. The confrontation not only unmasks the vile machinations of those who betrayed her, but also reinforces the sacred bond between Seline and Jace, a bond that no force of darkness can sever. Their connection, now revealed in the heat of combat, and the clarity of mutual defiance, stands as an unassailable truth amid the chaos. As the final blows are exchanged and the echoes of conflict slowly subside, Seline and Jace stand together, bloodied yet unbowed, a living testament to resilience and the enduring power of true love. In that resounding silence, the defeated figures of the conspirators fade into the background, leaving only the radiant certainty that, despite the devastation wrought by betrayal, a new era of honor and hope is dawning. Epilogue. A new dawn for the Pac-Man. Content summary. 6 months after the trial, the atmosphere within the pack has transformed. Seline and Jace, their bond now unmistakably affirmed, work together to rebuild not only their lives, but also the very soul of the pack. This epilogue encapsulates the journey of loss, resilience, and ultimate renewal. A future where hope, love, and unity prevail, and where the scars of betrayal serve as reminders of past battles that have forged a stronger tomorrow. 6 months have passed since the storm of the trial, and the once somber halls of the pack have given way to a quiet, heartfelt resurgence. The great hall, once filled with the echoes of discord and despair, now buzzes with a gentle murmur of renewal. The pack, having weathered the tempest of betrayal and injustice, is slowly reassembling itself around a newfound sense of unity. At the center of this transformation stand Seline and Jace, two souls whose undeniable bond has not only survived the crucible of hardship, but has also blossomed into a guiding light for all. In the soft glow of twilight, Seline and Jace work, side by side, to restore their home. The scars of the past remain etched upon the walls and within their hearts, yet they have become symbols of resilience, a testimony to the strength required to overcome the darkest of times. Together, they oversee the reconstruction of community spaces and the reformation of pack traditions, ensuring that every effort honors the memory of what was lost while embracing the promise of what is to come. Seline, once shrouded in betrayal and sorrow, now radiates an inner strength that inspires those around her. Her eyes, reflecting both the pain of past sacrifices and the hope of a redeemed future, meet those of her fellow pack members with a sincere resolve. "We have all endured too much," she tells a gathering of shifters during a quiet assembly. "But it is through our trials that we find the courage to rebuild, to create a future where truth and honor are not merely ideals, but the very fabric of our existence." Her words, delivered with a mixture of empathy and firm determination, rekindle a sense of purpose within the pack, drawing even the most disillusioned into a collective vision for renewal. Jace, ever the steadfast counterpart to Seline, stands as a pillar of quiet authority. His presence is a constant reminder of the powerful connection they share, a connection that has been tempered in the fires of conflict and now glows with a warm, unwavering light. Often, he touches the small glowing mark on his skin, a symbol of their true mate bond, and smiles, as if recalling the intimate promise they made during the most desperate moments of their battle. "Our past has been harsh," he murmurs during one reflective moment with Seline, "but it has led us here, to a future where our love, our unity, will rebuild everything we once thought was lost." The transformation of the pack is palpable. Once divided by fear and manipulated loyalties, the members now converse in earnest tones about mutual trust and the need for shared growth. Cedric and Sarah, who had borne witness to the trial's revelations, now speak of a time when leadership is not determined by power alone, but by the ability to inspire and protect. Their voices, carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom, echo in the corridors and gathering spaces, nurturing an atmosphere of hope. In hushed conversations, veteran shifters recount the lessons learned. That true strength comes not from blind obedience, but from the courage to question, to adapt, and to embrace the inevitable changes that come with time. Amid this revival, the memory of betrayal still lingers, an ever-present reminder of the darkness that once threatened to consume them. Yet it is precisely these scars that have imparted a new sense of responsibility and compassion within the pack. Every ritual, every shared meal, and every cooperative endeavor is imbued with the understanding that unity is not a given, but a precious treasure to be nurtured through honesty and collective effort. As the days pass, the pack begins to hold new ceremonies, celebrations of life, resilience, and the promise of a future unburdened by past treachery. In these quiet moments of communal joy, Seline and Jace are often seen together, their hands intertwined and their smiles reflective of a love that has been both tested and affirmed. Their reunion with the pack is not marked by grand proclamations, but by subtle, heartfelt gestures, a shared look of understanding, a gentle caress that speaks volumes, and the radiant glow of a future rekindled by hope. In the final hours of the day, as dusk gives way to a star-strewn sky, Seline stands before the assembled pack. The cool night air carries whispers of promise, and in that moment, her voice, steady, soft, yet filled with unyielding conviction, declares, "Tonight, we honor our past, but more importantly, we embrace our future. Together, We will rebuild, not just our home, but the very spirit that binds us as one. Her words, resonant with both sorrow and jubilation, leave an indelible mark on every soul present. The epilogue of this journey is not simply an end, but the dawning of a new chapter, a future where the bonds of truth, honor, and love stand as the true legacy of the pack. And as the night deepens, the soft glow of the moon casts a gentle light over Seline and Jace, their shared destiny a beacon for all who dare to dream of a tomorrow filled with hope.